Thank you and good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Andrew Seidenberg, Research Director at Truth Initiative. I'm also from Columbia, South Carolina. I grew up here. I used to go to the state fairgrounds every year. Grew up going to many games at Williams-Brice Stadium down the street. And I flew in Tuesday night and stayed at my parents' house. And my mom surprised me with a big bag of Kromer's boiled peanuts, which is something you can't get in Washington, D.C., so it's really exciting for me to be here. It's also fitting because this is where I got my start working in tobacco control. Many years ago, I had a summer internship at what was called DHEC, working with Sharon Biggers and her team in the tobacco control branch. I was there for one summer, and also for my master's thesis research project, I measured indoor air quality in bars in downtown Columbia in the 5 Points area, which is the area where lots of USC students hang out in, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So it's really exciting to come home and be here to speak with you. But the focus of my talk today is going to be on the changing product landscape, and I'll also discuss some policy considerations. But I want to start with a local story, and this is about Columbia going smoke-free. This is sort of my perspective, my involvement. And this is the research I did for my master's thesis research. So this is a photo of a couple people hanging out in a bar, but this is also a photo of a night of data collection for my master's thesis research, which was on indoor air quality in the bars in 5 Points. And if you look closely at the purse, you'll notice there's some clear tubing sticking out. And that's because inside the purse is a air quality monitoring device called a side pack. And this device uses light scattering technology to quantify levels of particulate matter in the air, specifically PM 2.5. These are microscopic particles created from combustion, so cars, burning coal, also burning cigarettes. And they're so small they can be inhaled deep into the lungs and cause disease. And so for this summer research project for my master's thesis, I went around to all the bars in downtown Columbia with this device. We did this undercover. Nobody knew what I was doing. I didn't want to influence people's smoking behaviors, and collected a lot of data. And this is what the data looks like. So on the x-axis, this is time. The y-axis is levels of PM 2.5. And on this particular night, we visited 2 bars. So the 2 peaks are the 2 bars, and the valleys are outdoor air. So I always spent time outside to measure the sort of background levels. And as you can see, and not surprisingly, in an enclosed environment, lots of people smoking cigarettes, the air quality was really bad. Levels of PM2.5 were a lot higher compared to outdoor air. In fact, I think most of the bars had levels at what EPA would designate as hazardous or very unhealthy. EPA has standards for outdoor air. So in addition, that summer I had an opportunity to meet with Mayor Bob Coble. And we met one-on-one. I gave a little PowerPoint presentation, just like I'm doing right now. And he was interested in this issue and later drafted an ordinance to ban smoking in Columbia. The state newspaper did a write-up about my research, which was very exciting. And of course, it actually passed and Columbia went smoke-free. And this was my first research project, so I feel like I kind of peaked early because it's really hard to have this kind of impact so quickly. I do want to say there were many people involved, many people that contributed to the success of Columbia becoming smoke-free, including some people in the room today. But this data was really helpful. And me being a student, I think, was also really helpful, allowed me to have these conversations with policymakers. But this is what got me interested and excited about tobacco control research, and I've been working in this space ever since. So now I want to transition and talk about the changing product landscape, and I'm going to focus mostly on e-cigarettes and nicotine pouches. As I'm sure all of you are aware of, we've seen just a large proliferation of e-cigarettes in the recent years, especially disposable e-cigarette devices. To date, FDA has authorized 34 e-cigarette products from 3 brand families, but we have hundreds, if not thousands, of devices that are being sold and used. This is a figure from Truth Initiative's website where we've estimated the percent of e-cigarette sales that are authorized versus non-authorized, and about 86% of e-cigarette sales in the US are non-authorized brands. And in recent years, there's been a large rise in disposables capturing a larger market share of e-cigarette devices. And these disposable devices have been changing and evolving over time. Some colleagues of mine at Truth Initiative published a paper called Bigger, Stronger, Cheaper, which has one of the best titles for an academic research paper, where they describe these changes with e-cigarettes, disposable e-cigarettes getting bigger, that is, containing more e-liquid volume over time. They've gotten stronger with regards to average nicotine strength. So since 2017, it's nearly doubled. It's sort of been flat in the past couple years, right around 5%, but there are devices higher than 5%. And these devices have also gotten a lot cheaper. Bigger, stronger, cheaper. Disposable devices may also be getting sweeter. And I don't have any longitudinal data to show changes in the sweeteners that are appearing, but there's a recent paper that hasn't even come out yet. It's not peer reviewed, but the authors released a preprint in advance where they found the artificial sweetener neotame in 57 of the leading disposable devices in the US. Neotame, it's an artificial sweetener that has a similar structure to aspartame, but is substantially more sweeter. Just to put this into context, compared to table sugar, it is thousands of times more sweeter. Okay, it's a very, very sweet artificial sweetener. So bigger, stronger, cheaper, maybe sweeter. These devices are also getting smarter, and by smarter I mean like a smartphone, more technology. We're seeing a lot of products being introduced that have digital screens and just lots of technology built in, including the ability to adjust flavor, nicotine concentration in real time. Some devices have Bluetooth connectivity. You can connect to your smartphone. You can access apps on your e-cigarette. You can receive various notifications on your e-cigarette. They have GPS proximity sensors in them, and some even have games built in. And we have one of these devices in the office that you can play Pac-Man on it. It's like playing a Game Boy. So bigger, stronger, cheaper, maybe sweeter, and some devices are getting smarter. And this is a quote from David O'Reilly from British American Tobacco, who owns R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, where he was quoted recently saying, "We're becoming a tech company." And this is a company that sells e-cigarettes as well as a heated tobacco product. In addition to these changes, a number of celebrities have introduced e-cigarette brands, including basketball player Dennis Rodman, Hulk Hogan has an e-cigarette product, Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, and this is a soccer player. So that's the landscape of e-cigarettes. And now I want to talk a little about nicotine pouches, which is a newer category. I think most of you are probably familiar with nicotine pouches. This includes brands like Zen. But when I talk about nicotine pouches, I'm referring to pouches filled with a nicotine powder. And one of the defining characteristics of these products is that there's no tobacco leaf. The ingredients are typically nicotine, sweeteners, flavors, pH stabilizers, which are used to influence nicotine absorption, as well as fillers. And when using these products, you typically place them between the top lip and gum. And unlike with moist snuff or dip, there's usually no spitting. So to date, FDA has authorized the sale of 20 nicotine pouches, all Zen products of different flavors and nicotine strengths. And in the US, the market is dominated by Zen, but really there's these 4 big brands that control the market, but Zen has something like a 75% market share in the US. Of course, there's many other brands out there, kind of like we saw with disposable e-cigarettes. In terms of popular flavors in the US, by far the most popular flavor is mint. That is the preferred flavor based off of sales. And in terms of nicotine strength, 6 milligrams is the most popular level of nicotine. And this data is a little bit outdated, but 6 milligrams. That's been maintained for the past couple years. Of course, there are products that have much higher nicotine strength, and just wanted to highlight this. These are products purchased in the United Kingdom that had over 90 milligrams of nicotine per pouch. And similar to e-cigarettes, there are many celebrities that have come out with pouch brands, including media personality Tucker Carlson, Dennis Rodman, who also has an e-cigarette product, and this is an MMA fighter who has a nicotine pouch brand. So that's an overview of the changing market, e-cigarettes, some background about nicotine pouches. I now want to talk about something new and emerging called nicotine analogs, which impacts both the e-cigarette market and the nicotine pouch market. By a show of hands, how many people here have heard of nicotine analogs? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So this is nicotine. This is the chemical structure of nicotine, the addictive chemical found in cigarettes, other tobacco products. It's naturally produced by the tobacco plant. It can also be made in a laboratory using non-tobacco starting materials. This is referred to as synthetic nicotine. And this is 6-methyl-nicotine. And if you look at the structures, it is identical to nicotine except for this one methyl group that's been added. And it's so similar to nicotine that it will bind to nicotine receptors in the brain. And this is an example of a nicotine analog. And to just give a definition, analogs have been defined as compounds which are structurally similar or related to nicotine, including enantiomers, nicotine derivatives, metabolites, and salts. And the cigarette companies did a lot of research on nicotine analogs throughout the 70s and 80s. And they were interested in analogs for a variety of reasons, replacing nicotine to make more desirable or safer products, to evade future nicotine regulations, as well as developing pharmaceutical drugs. So there's a lot of research that the industry did. Interestingly, to the best of my knowledge, they never introduced any commercial products made with nicotine analogs. So where are we now? So we're now seeing products being sold right now made with nicotine analogs, including Spree Bar and several other e-cigarette products, as well as e-liquids. There's also a variety of pouched products. So these are not nicotine pouches. They don't have nicotine in them. They're nicotine analog pouches or something. We need a better term. There's also something like moist snuff or dip, but it doesn't have tobacco. It's made with a non-tobacco material. It has a nicotine analog added, and there's even a gum. And as far as we know, there's no big tobacco company that's selling products with nicotine analogs. These are all smaller companies and startups that are introducing these products. In terms of the chemicals that are being used, so there are basically two chemicals that we know of so far. The first is 6-methyl-nicotine, which I previously showed you. It has a structure very similar to nicotine, binds to nicotinic receptors. The other is a chemical called nicotinamide, which is a water-soluble form of vitamin B3, and it's not as similar in terms of structure compared to 6-methyl-nicotine. It doesn't bind to nicotinic receptors. But both of these chemicals are appearing in products like e-cigarettes and pouches. One thing that's somewhat confusing is that the companies selling these products usually don't say 6-methyl-nicotine. And 6-methyl-nicotine is by far the most common analog being used, but they use a variety of trademarks. All of these trademarks describe 6-methyl-nicotine. In addition to e-cigarettes and pouches, there's a website that sells 6-methyl-nicotine under the Emotine trademark, and they describe potential application in lozenges as well as patches. So in the future, we might see products being sold in these forms, which of course resemble nicotine replacement therapy. And I also want to point out that in the 1980s, Philip Morris did research with cigarettes, where they added nicotine analogs to cigarettes. They took denicotinized tobacco and made cigarettes. So they removed the nicotine from tobacco, made a cigarette, then added nicotine analogs, and they conducted human clinical trials having people smoke these products. So it's possible in the future we could see combustible products made with nicotine analogs. And I especially want to highlight this in the context of FDA's proposed rule to lower nicotine levels in cigarettes, because this would completely undermine a policy like that. In addition, there was an article recently in Reuters that reported that e-cigarette manufacturers in China have been studying nicotine analogs. In particular, one company, Hengst International, was looking at around 10 nicotine analogs, including 6-methyl-nicotine. So in the future, we might see other chemicals being introduced as analogs. So what do we know about the health and addictive risks of these chemicals? Not much. It's still sort of early stages, and there's not a lot of research, especially with humans. We do know that 6-methyl-nicotine has a lower LD50 compared to nicotine. LD50 is the dose of a chemical that's required to kill 50% of laboratory animals. And so a lower LD50 means less of the chemical kills animals, so it's more lethal. And so again, this product, 6-methyl-nicotine, has a lower LD50. It's more lethal to laboratory animals compared to nicotine. And there's some research suggesting it's twice as toxic to bronchial epithelial cells. But again, there's limited human exposure data, especially inhalation data. And we know from research that tobacco companies did that 6-methyl-nicotine binds very strongly to nicotinic receptors in the brain. So this chemical is likely just as addictive, if not more addictive, as nicotine. So why would companies want to make products with 6-methyl-nicotine instead of nicotine? Well, one reason is to evade regulation. And they make lots of claims, regulatory claims in their marketing. One company described doesn't fall within FDA's regulatory charter. Another company highlighted how wasn't subject to the California flavor ban. And the ad on the right says PMTA exempt, tobacco tax exempt, no tobacco license required. So can these products be regulated? Well, at the federal level, FDA regulates tobacco products, and tobacco products are defined as products made with tobacco, something derived from tobacco, or nicotine from any source. So if these products are not made with tobacco or nicotine, they don't meet the definition of a tobacco product according to the Tobacco Control Act. So they're not currently regulated by CTP, the Center for Tobacco Products. However, the other part of FDA, the part that regulates drug, potentially could regulate these products. These products have known pharmacological effects, and some companies make drug-like claims. However, to date, as far as we know, nothing has been done. It's possible FDA is waiting for Congress to act. This is what happened with synthetic nicotine, where products were introduced made with synthetic nicotine, which at the time were not considered tobacco products. And Congress passed a law updating the definition of what is a tobacco product to include products made with nicotine from any source. So not much is happening at the federal level, but some cities and states are taking action and can take action. So California passed a pretty comprehensive ban on the sale of flavored tobacco products, and they updated their definition of what is a tobacco product to include products made with nicotine analogs. Also, Denver, Colorado passed a similar flavor policy that includes nicotine analogs, and there are several other states that have filed similar bills. So this is definitely something that cities and states can act on. All right. So I talked about the changing disposable e-cigarette market, provided some background on nicotine pouches, then talked about nicotine analogs, which have the potential to undermine a lot of our tobacco control policies and regulations. I now want to talk about policy considerations. We've made a lot of progress at reducing youth e-cigarette use from the Juul epidemic. It's come way down. It's still a concern and a major public health problem. Youth use of nicotine pouches, according to NYTS, is pretty low. It might be starting to uptick a little bit. And there's a lot of concerns about these products, given how they likely appeal to young people because they're highly flavored. They deliver nicotine. They can be used very discreetly. But so far, youth rates are low. At the same time, FDA has authorized some e-cigarettes and has authorized Zen nicotine pouches. And in the press releases announcing the authorization of these products, FDA stated, they basically said the same thing. These products have the potential to provide a benefit to adults who smoke cigarettes that is sufficient to outweigh the risks of the products, including to youth. So if concerns about youth use, these products potentially could have benefits for adults. So what is the right policy balance to sort of juggle both of these? And I don't have the answer, but I wanted to share what some places are doing and what can be done. And I want to start with a quote from the health minister of Canada. And he stated, "Stronger measures are needed to protect youth from the harmful effects of nicotine and stop dependency before it starts. The action our government is taking will keep these products available for adults who need them to quit smoking while making sure they don't get into the hands of youth for recreational use." And this quote is referring to how Canada is regulating nicotine pouches, not e-cigarettes. So what did Canada do? So in Canada, nicotine pouches are sold exclusively in pharmacies. You can't buy them in 7-Eleven, gas stations, convenience stores, only in pharmacies, and they are approved as nicotine replacement therapy, like Nicorette gum. Only available in mint and menthol flavors, and there's only one brand that is legally sold, Zonic, which is an NRT brand similar to Nicorette. So that's how Canada is regulating nicotine pouches. And Zen is extremely popular in the United States. I'm wondering, can you buy Zen in Canada? And as far as I know, you can't. They, according to this headline, they recalled it. The only brand you can get is the NRT brand that's sold in pharmacies. So that's how Canada is regulating nicotine pouches. I now want to talk about what Australia is doing for e-cigarettes. They updated their regulations of e-cigarettes in 2024, where they banned disposable sales. Similar to Canada, sales are restricted to pharmacies, and if you want to buy cigarettes without a prescription, the cap is 20 milligrams per milliliter. You have to be 18 years of age or older, and you have to have a consultation with a pharmacist. If you want a higher concentration of nicotine, you can get a prescription. You also need a prescription if you're under the age of 18. And the flavors are restricted to mint, menthol, and tobacco, and they're sold in plain packaging. So in Australia, this is what e-cigarettes look like. It's a very different product landscape compared to what we have here. But there are things some communities are doing in the United States. So there were flavor restrictions in Australia and Canada, and cities and states are doing something similar. Here's a map showing flavor restrictions by state. It's important to point out there's a wide range of flavor restrictions, and many restrictions have exemptions for different products, different flavors, or retailers. In Australia, they had some restrictions on the nicotine strength. Some states and cities are doing something similar. So 2 states have capped nicotine strength for e-cigarettes, and a town in Massachusetts has capped one for nicotine pouches. So is there an ideal nicotine level or range that will minimize recreational use? In terms of access, so Canada and Australia, again, limited sales to pharmacies. There are a handful of towns in Massachusetts that are restricting the sale of nicotine pouches to adult-only stores. And just imagine if all tobacco products, including cigarettes, could be limited, only sold in adult-only venues. And just a couple other challenges to think about. FDA has been really struggling with the sale of so many unauthorized products. And of course, it's been announced recently, FDA has laid off a lot of staff. This is going to probably continue to be an issue. This is an issue that FDA probably can't handle all on its own. Enforcement of existing policies is probably going to be an issue, as not only FDA laying off staff, but local state and health departments are laying off staff. And surveillance. Surveillance is so important to tobacco control. It was announced that OSH, the Office on Smoking Health, has been closed. OSH ran the National Youth Tobacco Survey, which was our main surveillance tool. And as local health departments have budgets cut, local surveillance may be reduced as well. This is really important for informing policies and evaluating policies. So just a few additional challenges to consider. And I wanted to conclude with just a few final remarks. We are going through some really challenging and strange times right now with budget cuts and layoffs. I'm sure some of you are being impacted or will be impacted in the future. We have colleagues and friends in the field that have lost jobs, lost grant funding, worried about their careers. It's bad for people's careers. It's bad for the future of tobacco control. It's bad for public health. And I first just want to say the work that all you are doing is really valued and is really important. And I also wanted to share this. I was in my childhood bedroom a couple days ago, and in the closet, I found this. And I think some of you might recognize this. It's laundry detergent, right? But there's a sticker on the one side, and it looks like this. It says, "You can wash it out of your clothes, but you can't wash it out of your lungs. Secondhand smoke kills. Make it happen." And these were given out outside bars in downtown Columbia when smoking was allowed, trying to educate people about the dangers of secondhand smoke and to help Columbia go smoke-free. And when I was doing my research in the bars, in addition to the air quality monitoring, I also surveyed people, patrons, bar owners, managers, asking them about their perceptions of secondhand smoke, perceptions of the air quality in the bar. Do they support a ban on smoking in bars? And so many people told me, it'll never happen here. This is South Carolina. We're a tobacco state. We're not New York City. It'll never happen here. That's what I was told. But we made it happen. And these are really challenging times. The work that you are doing is so important. The prevention work, the cessation work. I hope this meeting continues. I hope you all continue working in tobacco control and that we can all continue to make things happen here in South Carolina. So thank you.